listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. I did the funnest thing today. So Omari Hardwick's my guy crush, and he used to live right across the street from me, actually. And I would see him occasionally, and I would wave and give like a nod. And I didn't know if he just was like, I don't know what he was thinking, if it's just like, oh, maybe it's somebody I actually know, or is this just some random fan and everybody recognizes me? I don't know. But anyway, I sent him an inbox one day on Instagram, and I was like, hey, really love your work. You're great. Really love your poetry. Love your story. You should come on the podcast. Doesn't reply, which I wasn't, no shade. I wasn't mad about it. And so I was like, I wonder if maybe he didn't reply because I also included like, yeah, I live across the street. So he was probably like, this deranged person gonna tell me she lives across the street and expect me to come on her podcast at her house. So anyway, fast forward today, I was looking at tickets to The View, and I was like, oh my God, Omari Hardwick's going to be the guest. I have to go. So then I ended up going, and my whole plan was like, okay, so I don't know if for those of you who have ever been to a taping, you're generally not exposed to the guest and the host and the people on stage. Like, it's very separate. And then there's like people guiding you through every step of the process, like where you're sitting, you know, which way you're looking, when you're laughing, etc. So in knowing this, I was still like, at some point, me and him are just going to connect. Our eyes are going to connect. And then he's going to, and then I'm going to be like, I'll like signal like, oh, talk to you after the show. No big deal. And so the entire time, like his interview was probably, I don't know, 6 minutes max. But the whole time I'm like not taking my eyes off of him. And I'm like, look at me. Look at me. So sadly, our eyes didn't lock. And I still know where he lives. That sounds stalkerish. I'm not going to do anything with that. So Omari, I don't know. Maybe you're listening right now. So it's never too late. I don't live across the street anymore, but just down the street now. So actually, the whole lesson of this, follow your dreams. I'm going to meet him one day, and he's going to come on this podcast. I promise you. I don't know which episode it's going to be, but he will be on this podcast. So tonight I have with me Ebony. Ebony is a native New Yorker, and she is married and in the beauty industry. So we're going to talk about all of that, married life, how they met, etc.
Don't forget to mention I'm from the Bronx.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Not just New Yorker, but I'm from the Bronx. That is a Bronx thing to do. People be like, I'm from the Bronx. I'm like, okay.
We got to represent. We have to represent.
Like, I didn't mean it anyway. It's all good. I'm from the Bronx.
It's funny because I have a bunch of friends that I grew up with. And one day I sat and I asked them, I said, why do we do that? We don't even know why we do it. We just want people to know we're from the Bronx. We're proud of where we're from.
As if the Bronx is not in New York.
But you know what the thing is that the Bronx is the borough that everybody looks down upon in many different ways.
No, that's
right?
Staten Island.
No. Well, that's the forgotten borough. You're right. And so we feel like we have to prove ourselves, especially now with Brooklyn being gentrified the way it is. People like repping Brooklyn extra hard. It's safe now and stuff like that. So they think that the Bronx is the scariest place on earth. And I mean, it can be scary. But
hold on, the new thing should be, I'm from the Bronx, the safest place to be in the boroughs. Like a little ad.
Yeah, so I don't know. We all do that. I don't know why that is.
So I met Ebony like maybe, I don't know, a couple months ago at
a fundraiser.
A fundraiser. Yeah. And you and your husband Vern.
Yeah.
And y'all were really cute.
My honey boo.
Your honey boo.
He's so cute.
So you were talking about just how different you guys were initially and like how you met. So like how did that all come about?
If I remember correctly, I was telling you that, born and raised in the Bronx. My mom passed away when I was 18. I had a pretty tragic life story. My mom passed away. My sister passed away. I was raising my niece and nephews at the time. I just got out of an 8-year relationship. I was still living in the Bronx. I had a pit bull named Homie. He was
the homie.
He was the homie. Everybody knew him. He was 80 pounds big. And I was going into a new friend network, right? Mm-hmm. And it was my first time really coming in contact with the educated Black folks, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was a bunch of people who went to Morehouse, who went to Spelman, and I was really uncomfortable. And so when I got and very insecure in many different ways, and mm-hmm. My own little issues that I had to deal with, I meet this guy who his life couldn't be any different, more different than mine, right? And so he only child.
How old were you at this point when you guys met?
I was 25.
Mm-hmm.
I was 25, and I think he was 20, probably 23 at the time when we met. And so we got introduced through a mutual friend. When we first met, I thought he was cool, but the way he was introduced to me, it was like, here's this guy, he's great. He has all of these different things. He can take care of you. And so at that point, my mom, was deceased for probably 6 or 7 years, and I could take care of myself.
Right, I've been doing this.
I'm from the Bronx. I got this.
I'm from the Bronx.
I'm from the Bronx.
Safest place in the boroughs.
Never been in a fight in my life, but my mother told me, "You act crazy, people will leave you alone." and so I was kind of turned off by that the fact that he thought that I would be interested in my husband because of his credentials.
Right.
After the first day we met, I was like, you're a nice guy, but I'm not interested, right? And he
just because of that whole comment by the friend.
Just for that comment,
But he didn't say it. The friend said it.
I know, but I felt like, I guess at that point, I was dealing with my own insecurities, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to be viewed as someone who was a gold digger, right? Because where I grew up, it was more of, the way I was raised, it was like, you shouldn't love somebody for what they have, right? You should love them for who they are, which, I think in general, we should think that way, but, you should also consider other things. It's not just love, right? And so at that point, I turned him down. I sent him an email. He talks about it to this day. He's like, "Who is this girl?" Send me an email you're nice, but I'm not interested. And so that piqued his interest though, because he was used to. At that point, he was the president of his high school. Then he had graduated from Columbia University. He was I was 25, so he was 23, going on 24. Just purchased his co-op on the Upper East Side.
Okay.
Well, that's right. That's my boo. He was also he's extremely hardworking. Was in investment banking and just really crushing it. And so he had the pedigree that girls were looking for, right? But for me, I didn't understand any of that, right? I didn't. At that point, I was 25. I wasn't exposed to that type of life at that point,
right?
And so I was still in hustle mode at that point. And so I was like, I could take care of myself. I don't need you. And he was like, this poor child. Let me show her the world. And that's what we did. And so when you and I met, we were talking about how frustrating it was for me, because I felt like, I've always been a hustler, and I was always someone who felt like I was going to make it and I deserved more in life. And I felt like that because I was with someone who had the credentials that my husband has, that the world was looking at me like, he was the ultimate come up for me, and they were discounting my hard work and my effort. And so I was frustrated when you and I had met, because I was like, he didn't come pick me up out of the projects. He didn't meet me.
Right.
He met me at dinner, And so that's how we kind of got into the conversation about the two worlds, where I told you when I finally write my life story, it's going to be called From the Hood to Harvard, navigating these different social circles, because my husband eventually went on to go to business school in Harvard.
one, how did you guys move from that email to a relationship? Two, at the beginning of the relationship, how did you navigate that? Like, how did you navigate people sort of, discounting what you had done up to that point? And did you have to navigate that with, like, his friends and his family, or was it like who were you navigating?
Right. So of course, early on, I think when you really look at my life story, it's crazy, right? My mom passed away, my sister passed away. I was taking care of my sister's children. I had a pit bull named Homie, right? It looked kind of crazy. And
so it was just you, like, taking care of these kids?
Well, it was me and it was me and my aunt and my niece's father. So they were separated when my sister passed away. Mm-hmm. And so I kept them together. So on the weekends and during the summer times, I would bring them together. So I was working full-time at Lehman Brothers, going to school full-time at St. John's, and then full-time at St. John's. And then on the weekends and in summers, I was taking care of my nieces and nephews. But I still had an awesome life. And that's one of the things that I think that's one of the reasons why I felt so frustrated, because people will look at me as if I was like a sad sob story, and I was like, I'm still lit with y'all in the club, having fun and living my life, And so I think my husband, his friends and family it raised an eyebrow, right? You got this girl in the Bronx with a pit bull named Homie, right? But I honestly think that it was my own insecurities too.
More so than them.
It was my insecurities more so than them, because I valued the things that he accomplished, the credentials that he had and things like that. I valued it, but not in the way that other people value it, right? Like, I felt like I was worthy of accomplishing the same things, but I had so many obstacles in my way. One of the things I've learned in my life is, like, when I feel frustrated, if I'm hurt, or even if I feel jealousy, I realize that it's something that's within me.
Right.
And so I can't really put it on the people that was around him and say that they made me feel some kind of way. It was my own.
Because you had to have something inside to even pick up on it and feel it, even if they were doing it.
And so a little to take it back a little bit, my mother was illiterate when I was growing up, and she didn't learn how to read and write until she was 35.
Oh, wow.
And then she went on, she got her GED, she got a bachelor's degree in psychology, and then shortly thereafter she passed away from cancer, right? And so for me, I understood that there was a value to having a certain type of education, right? And like I said, I had my own insecurities that I had to overcome. There was a part of me that wanted to be validated for what I had overcome, and I didn't feel like I was getting that. So he's like, you could be the best, go be the best. And I'm like, but it's hard. And he's like, so what, right? You got this. But I'm like, but you're not acknowledging everything that I've gone through. And he's like, I'm acknowledging it, but I see that you are awesome and you're amazing. You know what I mean? And so I need you to go forward with that, So a lot of it, now that I'm 38, I realize a lot of the friction or tension and stuff like that was really because of my own insecurities, because he thought the world of me. I think he still does. He thought the world of me, but I didn't think the world of myself. And I'm very introspective. I spend a lot of time reflecting. Whenever I feel an intense emotion, I spend time evaluating it, and it all just comes down to me at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And there's nobody in this world that can make me feel good or make me feel bad.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It all comes down to me. And so even when his friend was like, oh, he has this, that, and he does that, I took it personally to make it
you're saying something about spouting his credentials is saying something about me.
About me. Like, what? Well, I don't need him. I can take care of myself. Right? But he didn't say that. He said, this guy's good. He's a family guy. He's focused. He's educated. He will take care of you. Right? And I took that as you saying that I was helpless. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so at the end of the day, a lot of that came from me. But it has been an uphill battle for me, and I think since you and I met last, I think I've evolved so much in my thinking and understanding of my insecurities and how I view the world, right? Like when things happen to me, you know, my reaction is a clear indication of like how I feel about myself.
Yep.
You know,
your reaction to any situation says more about you than the people in it.
Mm-hmm. Right? And so every time now when I feel that tension, like the victim thing, I'll tell you about it. I'm a full-time entrepreneur. And goal is basically to create spaces for beauty entrepreneurs to connect with communities of color. So I've been taking courses through we.nyc. It's like Women Entrepreneurs.nyc. They have a bunch of courses and funding. And so I met this lady. She was teaching a leadership course, and she's a business coach. And so I was like, you know what? I think I need you because I have severe anxiety around putting myself out there. Right. So this is big right now, us having this conversation. And so I spoke to her and I was telling her about my life and what I wanted. And she said, I'm sorry, but forgive me, but you sound like a victim. And I was like, what? Me? Like, this is one thing I never wanted to be in life, was a victim. Mm-hmm. And I sat with that and I said, you know what? She said, the reason why she said that was because I always led with, and I probably did on this podcast, led with my sob story, what I've been through, where I'm from, you know, from the Bronx, you know, and I was saying things in a way, and I think I still do it, and I'm working on it. I basically just wanted people to validate me, you know what I mean? To say, you know what? You may not have the pedigree, you may not have the credentials, but you did well, right? And I never felt like I was validated, right? And so when this woman called me a victim, I was sitting there and I was like hurt, like real hurt. But it took me to that point where I just was like, you know what? She's right. Why am I leading like that? Why am I not telling you that, like, you know, in my last position, I sold over $600 million worth of real estate for the company that I worked for. I was a regional manager, ran a team of sales associates, and within 1 year, 4 of my employees got promoted to managers because of the training that I gave them. I don't lead with those things. I lead with, from the Bronx, my mom passed away, my sister passed away. You know what I mean? I did this and that. And so the victim in me showed up.
Right.
You know, so.
And as I'm thinking about it, like, I guess there's never really a need to say that. Not that, and I'm not negating it happening or the impact that it had. Right. But it's kind of like, if you're already in the room, it doesn't need to be said. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, well, I know I'm here now with all you people, but remember this and this and this happened. But it's like, it doesn't actually matter because I'm just as good as you because I'm already in this room.
Right, exactly. And I think maybe that's why those of us from the Bronx, we say we're from the Bronx, right? Because in some weird way, it's a validation.
It's like extra stripes, like
like I made it through this, like I made it, you know. And I remember, like, when early on in our relationship, I would tell people, I'm like, you know, because I had a chip on my shoulder, and I was like, you know, you know them books that you're reading about. I done lived that life, you know what I mean? I done lived that life. So good for you for getting a degree. What do I get for living that life and overcoming it? And being the hustler that I am, being as intelligent as I am, you know, I speak with, you know, I have a Bronx accent, don't always complete my sentences, and was very insecure about that. And I think I still have some insecurities around that, working on it, but it's still there, you know. But like you said, you're in the room. Right. And the funniest thing is, I think you and I spoke about this when we met, is that when my husband went to business school at Harvard, when I went up there, and that's why I always said my life story would be from the hood to Harvard, navigating those social circles. Because when I went up there with him, and I always tell people, we went to Harvard, he just went to class. But he
didn't do all those papers on his own. He just turned them in.
He had a support system here. But when we went up there, I became like a favorite amongst the spouses, right? And with the students. And a part of it was the girls would always say to me, it's like, you're just so real. Like, I feel comfortable with you. I can talk to you. And I realized that they're insecure in many ways, in the same ways that I'm insecure. It's just that they work through their insecurities. They push through it. And I'll never forget, one day it was a snowstorm, a blizzard out in Cambridge. And, you know, the snow plowers, that they're plowing the streets, and then they started plowing the jogging path. And I was like, but why are they doing that? Because people were out there jogging, right? And that stuck with me because I said, you know what? It's not that they don't feel the same things that I feel. They just keep going, right? They just keep pushing through that. That was huge for me because that made it opened up my eyes, and it made me realize that, like, you know what, Ebony, like, you're normal, right? I think a part of me being so feisty and pushing back on people is because I didn't feel like I was normal. I felt like I was the outsider, right? And we're humans. We all want to feel included.
Right.
And so I think at that point, that actually was a defining moment for me because I really, at that point, I realized, like, no, the only difference between me and them is that they're gonna keep going. They're gonna push through their insecurities and their discomforts. They're not gonna fight, right? And so I would cuss people out. Never got in a physical fight in my life, but I would cuss people out and stuff like that because I was feeling insecure. Whereas they would just find a way to outsmart you, right?
Right.
Or to win the argument.
And then you end up out of breath and they end up winning.
Right.
So how did you sort of course correct once you noticed that?
What do you mean? When I notice what, my insecurities?
Yeah.
Oh, I do it every day. It's not something. It's something that I do every single day.
Was there sort of like an aha moment though that you were like, you know, you talked about the coach recently, but like before that, was there sort of an aha moment?
There are many times I can't pinpoint that moment, but I knew I have a very big heart. Like my joy in life is to give and to be there for people. And I found myself during that period in time when I first met my husband really getting into a lot of fights with people and arguments and like trying to prove myself. And I don't think it was one particular moment, but I think like there was a series of things that happened that made me realize, like, listen, Ebony, you can't be out in these streets trying to prove yourself to people. You have the option to either improve, you know, so that you can compete with them, or to just accept where you're at in life. And so one of the things I started doing is I started asking people what books they read, right? Like, all you did, because in my mind, this is 26, 27-year-old. I'm like, all you did was read a book. I done lived this life, so let me read the same book. So it's like, let me read the book that you read. So I started to do that. And then again, my husband, like he's very patient, and he went out of his way to expose me to different things and to answer questions very patiently, to educate me on other people's thought process, if he was able to. And it's just been like a journey. It's not even like a moment, it's a journey,
right?
You know, I'm still in it now. Like I told you, like when my coach told me that I was coming across as a victim,
Were you
that
mad?
was like 3 weeks ago. No, but you know what I did? I stopped working for 3 days and I sat in my room and I was like, because for me, when my mother passed away, people would say to me, they was like, I'm so sorry for your loss. I was 18.
Right.
I'm so sorry for your loss. And I would say, don't be sorry for me. Be sorry for those people who didn't make it, right? Right. And I never would accept the fact that I could be a victim, right? And what she said to me, it really hit me hard because it was the one thing that I feared being, right? Was being a victim. And to me, a victim is someone, it's not necessarily someone who's been attacked. It's someone whose life has been severely altered, right? In a way that, when you look at losing your mother at 18, your life is severely altered. Mm-hmm. But
do you think that victim is an event or a mindset?
I do think it's a mindset.
Okay.
And I think it's a mindset that I'm working every day to get out of because, and I think that it's a mindset, and in many ways it can be like a subconscious mindset, right? And so me saying validate me versus me validating myself and saying, wow, Ab, you done gone through some things, right? And you're still hustling hard, you know, and like you're accomplishing things like that. And the thing about it that's sad is that I have so many people that support me, so many people in my life who are like, you're wonderful, but I'm still in some ways feeling small and feeling like I didn't accomplish enough and I didn't do enough. You know what I mean?
I think everybody feels like that, though.
Right, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think everybody feels like the person who's been to space is like, I could have went 2 more times.
Right.
Everybody, whichever level they're on, they always feel like they could have or should be at the next level.
Right.
And I think especially women put sort of like this pressure on themselves where they don't even take the time to enjoy the win, because it's like you start dissecting why you didn't get to the next level or what happened, instead of just being like, you know what? Like, I did a damn good job and here I am. But it's like, here I am, but why didn't I get to there? I should have gotten to there. Such and such got to there. It's like ridiculous. Why am I? And then you start blaming yourself and pointing fingers, and it's just like, it's a bad cycle.
Well, I think I'm unique in this way where I actually do enjoy the journey, right? And a part of it, like, I wake up every day and I think of all the things that I'm grateful for. Like, I was telling this lady the other day, I was like, me and my husband wake up every day and we smile at each other, like literally wake up like, hey, babe. A lot of people don't do that, right? And so I am able to enjoy it, but I'm never satisfied. And so it's this, and one of the reasons why I think I'm able to enjoy it is because I look at life through the lens of death all the time, right? Because I lost so many people in my family. Like, I lost my mother, my brother, my sister, my grandfather, my father. Like, I lost a lot of people. But it taught me how to love deeply and to enjoy life. But I look at everybody in my life, even my husband, I'm like, one day he may not be here, right? And it's not always death, but it's like, one day he may leave, and he has the right to leave if he wants to leave one day, right? I think everyone has the right to live the life that they need to live, or the life that they want to live, right? But so I have that side of me, but then I have the side of me that's like, I want to win, I want to beat everybody, and I think a part of that is because I do want to prove that I'm worthy, right? And it drives me crazy. I know it drives my husband crazy, because it's like, look at what you've accomplished. Like, you have a beautiful life. Like, you've come further than many people, and while helping raise your niece and nephews, while helping elevate friends, because that's big for me too. Like, it's not like, for me, everything I do is about elevating other people.
Like, who can I bring with me?
Right, because I've lost a lot of people. Not only did I lose a lot of people in my life, they died young. Right? And so I don't look at life as, it's not promised. Tomorrow's not promised.
You mentioned before that your husband's really been instrumental in this process. How does he deal with that, like, ongoing? Like, does he call you out in the moment? Like, hey, you're doing that thing again?
He called me out this morning. He told me, oh my God, my husband, he just thinks I'm great, right? He really does. And it's kind of awesome. But like, so yesterday when we moved into my pop-up shop, right, in the Canal Street Market, he said, he's like, when you greeted the guy at the door, you were like, I'm sorry, you were pouting, right? He said, stop pouting. So this morning he was like, you don't have to pout. He was like, you're amazing, you're great. You don't have to pout, right? And I think for me, the way I interpreted what he was saying is like, you don't have to shrink yourself, right? Because that's what I do. Even like, I'm pretty sure when he listens to this podcast, he's going to be like, why did you lead with the fact that you're from the Bronx and, you went through all of these things? Because he's like, people actually don't even need to know that because you're already in the room. You know what I mean? And you're not in the room because you're with me. You're in the room because of your accomplishments. And it doesn't matter who believes it or not. Like, yeah, I didn't come and pick you up out of the projects, right? Like, I met you at dinner or at a party and then took you to dinner. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's a constant thing. But he's constantly calling me out. He's constantly telling me that he's proud of me. He also, one of the things that he does really well, and I don't want to be sitting here bigging him up all day, but one of the things he does really well is, I think what he what he was able to identify and understand early on is just like, I really just wanted to be loved, right? And I'm really still a little girl at heart. And so, like, he kisses my forehead all the time. Like, 3 kisses before you leave in the morning, 3 kisses when you get home at night. Like, you know what I mean? And he really, he gives me those things,
Right.
and he gives me the space to be vulnerable and to be insecure. But it took work to get there because we come from 2 totally different universes, right? And so we had to learn to communicate, and I had to learn to say, babe, this is how I interpret what you're doing, what you're saying. So when you're frustrated and your nostrils flare, it makes me feel like I did something wrong. And he's like, no, that's just how I express frustration, right? And it's not always about you, right? And so we had to, over time, we've been together, 11 years, August 18th, 11 years together, 1 year married.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I want to talk about that. So what took so long?
I'm a firm believer that people have the right to live their life. I was 25 when we met. He was like 23, going on 24. And I think we both were going through changes. Like, he was fresh out of college. I was, for the first time in my life, experiencing what college would be like in terms of going out, having a friend network that was educated, and partying and things like that. And I think I also had it was still a lot of tragic things that were happening in my life. He chased after me for a year and 8 months. He's going to be like, oh boy, why are you telling him to chase after me for a year and 8 months? He pursued me for a year and 8 months, and he did everything. Like, he took me to the Museum of Natural History, took me out. I mean, he made sure that I got a chance to see New York in a way that I never saw it before, right? His thing was like, this girl's not exposed. I want her to see things that she's never seen before. So he did so much for me. And so I decided to officially ask him out. Like, it was like, we have an official start date. Like,
today is the day, write it down. I'm asking you out.
August 18th, right. But the funny thing about it is that's what happened. So I planned this big day. I had and I'm a tomboy. I wear jeans and sneakers all the time. And at this point, I wasn't wearing makeup and stuff. So I had a couple of girlfriends do my makeup, put on a dress, took him out to One If by Land, Two If by Sea, had them chauffeur him there when he came in the restaurant. I had on my dress, and I was looking fabulous. Yes. And then it just, by coincidence, his friends were in town, and so we met with them for drinks while I'm looking fantastic. And then we go back to his apartment, and my friends, they had like put tea light candles all over the apartment. They had a bottle of Moet sitting there, and a card from my nephew who said, will you be my auntie's boyfriend? Yes, no, maybe.
That's a cute way to do that. That's really cute.
So we have like an official start date. and so he pursued me for a year and 8 months. I asked him out, and then at that point, shortly thereafter, we started August 18th. My dad got diagnosed with cancer September 18th. It was the day of my birthday party, actually, because my birthday is September 16th, and we were going to Atlantic City. He got diagnosed September 18th. We still went to Atlantic City. My dad told me to go. He was like, go, girl. And then my dad passed away in November of that year. And so that was... we were going through some pretty tragic things. He also he was working for a bank at the time, and they sent him to Tokyo. So he was in Tokyo for 2 months. He flew me out there for like 4 to 5 days, like while my dad was sick, so I couldn't stay longer.
Right.
But he wanted me to at least see that, because again, like, his big thing has always been exposing me and making sure I got to see everything. And so I was just dealing with a lot of different family issues and stuff. And so I think we both, for a large part of our relationship, there was a lot of crazy things happening, and he held on, and I think he held on because he saw my soul, he saw who I was, he knew that, like, I had greatness within me, and so he was patient, and I mean, he wasn't patient all the time, not 100% of the time, but like 85% of the time. And so then we wound up moving to Baltimore, and then at that point he decided he wanted to go back to school. So he got into Harvard, and that's when I was boy done lost his mind. And it wasn't even about girls. It wasn't girls or anything. It's just when you go up there, you're in that environment. He literally was sitting in between kids whose parents were multimillionaires, you know, and thinking about his life. And so it kind of like, it set us in we were in a tough space during that time period. And so we took a little break, and my friends were like
distraught. The distance was tough, or like what was?
No, it wasn't a distance because I was up there. I just think that it was.
Oh, you were living in Boston at the
No,
time.
I wasn't living, but I would go up there often.
Oh, got it.
I wasn't living, but I would go up there often. So I was around him. We were around each other enough. I really just think that it was being in the bubble. There is a bubble when you.
There is an MBA bubble.
Yeah.
Well, you know, they say that like I don't remember the percentage, but it's like a crazy number of people get divorced shortly after business school or break up.
Right.
Because it is such like if you're not in this bubble right now, you don't understand. And I can't even talk to you.
Right. Yeah. You don't get it. He needed space. He just had a lot going on. And you have to understand, like, he's not a legacy kid. He's not a kid who had parents who had a ton of money or anything like that. Like, he literally worked his ass off to get in there. And so he's sitting there and he's just trying, like me, we're both never satisfied, trying to figure out how to be the best. And I think he was a little stressed, but he needed a break. And my friends were distraught. And I told him, I said, listen, thank you for the 7 years of your life that you gave to me, because you made me a better person. And my friends were like, what? They were like, what is
At that point, did you think that was it? Or did you know he just really needed some space and some time?
Well, if you ask him, he'll say... So I never dated the same guy twice. I've never been on a break before. So a break for me is
a breakup.
It's like, no, it wasn't even a breakup. For him, a break was a breakup. For me, it was like, all right, come back later when you take some space to clear your head. I didn't look at it as a breakup. But when I realized it was a breakup, that's when I was like, thank you for you.
I didn't get this right away.
I didn't get it right away.
You didn't send me an official memo like I did for our first date.
Because I had never gone through that where it was like, I need space. I never understood and I'm the type of person, like, it's black and white.
Right.
We have to define things so that I understand how we're moving forward.
How much space, how much time.
Right. That's exactly how I am. It's exactly how I am. But we took that time, and I in my heart of all hearts always felt like we would end up together, but I was prepared to move forward, you know. And I told him, I said, thank you for the 7 years of your life you gave me, because I became, you know, while with you, I become a much better human being, because he, like I said, his main thing while we were dating was like, I want you to see the world. You deserve to see the world. You deserve to see all these different things. So I thanked him. My friends, I mean, the craziest thing was when my niece and I told my niece, some of my family members still don't know that we took that break, right?
You're like, it's just best left unshared.
Right. Well, the reason why I didn't share it is because I find that your friends and family, once you tell them something's wrong, they hold on to that forever.
They don't forget, when you do. They don't
forget. And like, in my heart of hearts, I knew we would get back together. And so I was like, you know what? It doesn't serve a purpose for me to tell anybody what's going on. I told the friends that were a part of my life who I felt I can confide in. But other than that, I just went on living my life. But I told my niece, because my niece and I are really close. And her response, which made me be, you know, her response is what made me be like, you know, you're a great man. She was like, you know, well, Auntie, I'm grateful that we experienced him. And I was like, what?
Wow.
You know, because, you know, we've gone through so much in life that we understand that, like, nothing lasts forever, right? Like, you can find your soulmate at 16 and be with them until you're 90, but one of you guys may go first, right? And so what we've learned is to just enjoy what we have in front of us. And it's not like it didn't hurt. It hurt. You know, it hurt badly because he's someone that I absolutely adore. But I had to move forward, right? And that's just how my mind works. And so I wound up moving forward, and then, like, after probably like 8 or 9 months,
do people sometimes think that you maybe don't care about something because you move
forward?
Yeah. I only ask that because I've heard that same feedback of myself. Like,
Right.
It's been like, oh, like, you just, like, dismissed it like it was nothing, and then it was like you didn't care, and then you just moved on.
Right.
But the truth is, like, I don't like living in the misery of things.
Right.
And so I'm not one to be like, let me sit for 5 days and cry.
Right.
You know, like, I might feel that way, but then the next day I'm like, okay, looks like I got to get his stuff cleaned out of this place. Like,
but
just in activity, I'm like, I don't have to maybe live in that moment or think about it. And so to other people, though, it comes off like, damn, you just, like, moved on. Like, after all that, you didn't even care?
Right,
like, it didn't hurt you?
Well, I think the people in my life, they know. So I don't know how you process things, but I think people in my life, they know that I give a lot of thought and attention to every experience that I have, right? And I think early on when you first meet me, you may think I don't care, but I think over time you realize, like, no, she's healed. She healed.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's healing for me to move forward. It's not a distraction for me to move forward. So I don't move forward until I'm ready. And I give myself a time period in which I allow myself to be batshit crazy, right? And I did that when we had our break, and I was like, you know what? I give myself the first year, but we didn't last a full first year, we really didn't. We were still talking all the time and stuff like that because we like each, like, we actually enjoy each other. We're fun together. Like, watch when you come to my house and see us doing Zumba. So we really enjoy each other. So it wasn't like a real break. But I said, you know what? If after this point, up to this point, if we're not back together, then I'm just going to move forward. And it's not that I don't care, because I'm fortunate because I have the ability to tell people how I really feel about them. So I could be vulnerable and say, I love you. I'm miserable without you, but I need to move forward because I don't like being miserable. Right. And so people, they understand that. Right. You know?
So how did it come back together then?
I went on a date.
That's what it takes sometimes. You ain't the only one out here. Men respond well to that. I don't know what it is.
They do. And he was like, hold up. No, I went on a date. I was at this point, you know, and I will say, and bring me back to it, because if I don't come back to it, I do think that break was good for both of us. Mm-hmm. I went on a date with a guy who was a millionaire, and yeah, we had been separated for about 8 to 9 months. Mm-hmm. I was living in a different place. He was living in a different place, and I told him, like, you know, if I'm distant, it's because I'm going on a date, right? And he was like, hold up.
With who?
Exactly.
As he plugs it into Facebook.
Right, but no, I went on a date, and, you know, I think he had the space and the time that he needed at that point. Mm-hmm. And he was just like, no, I really feel like we need to be together. So we got back together. But like I told him, I said, you know, he has the right to make the decision that he made. He has the right to live his life how he sees fit. And like, I truly, truly believe that. Like, if you only have one life to live, you need to live it. And that doesn't mean that you should be selfish or inconsiderate or rude. And he never was that, you know?
Right.
But you should be honest with yourself and the people in your life and stating, like, listen, this isn't working for me.
Right.
So that they can move forward. Think about how many people waste time holding on to something that they know is not right.
Yep.
Like, really think about that.
A lot of people.
You know, right. And that's your life. You know what
That's
I mean?
why divorce is so high.
Right.
Because people, like, they might know it's not right in the moment, but they're still just like,
and
let's just do it now.
And you know what? I think people fall in love with the idea of getting married more than
marriage.
It's work. Me and my husband, we work. We work. And it's one of the reasons why I adore him, because he's willing to be vulnerable. He's willing to talk to me about how he feels. He's willing to put himself out there, mm-hmm. in the name of love, right? And he's so supportive and so loving. And I'm not trying to give him all the props under the
You
sun.
should. That's your man.
But yeah, you're right. But he's an amazing human first. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's the thing that I love about him is that he's an amazing human.
So me personally, I'm really big on like, okay, so you guys have been out how many times? And okay, so he hasn't brought this up. Girl, you need to move on. I'm quick to pull the trigger. And it's only because I feel like at a certain point in life, like when you know yourself, like you just know, right?
Right.
So I guess my question is, how did you have the patience to, not say, you know what? Because a lot of us, we have, again, our own insecurities. And so then that leads us to do things like give ultimatums to people.
Right.
Justly or unjustly.
Right.
But how did you, I guess, how were you so patient and not say, you know what, like,
I can't
you done had long
anymore.
enough?
My daddy's name is Domingo, right? I always tell people that my dad's Domingo. My dad was one of the greatest blessings for me because he was tall, Puerto Rican, he was bilingual, handsome, and he was a womanizer. And I started to observe him and his behaviors, and I started to understand what I wanted from a man. It wasn't physical. It wasn't even, I want somebody who has a job. I want someone who does well, of course, but I really wanted someone who had a good heart, right? Who was ambitious, but who had a good heart, who had respect for me, who had respect for other people, who could make an impact on people. And like I said, when we broke up, my niece was like, I'm grateful that we had him in our lives. My friends were crying, right? And so I'm also a person who, I'm a work in progress, and I know that I'm not where I need to be. I'm not, and so, or I'm where I need to be, but I know that there's opportunity for growth, right? And so I looked at it as a growth process for him, and I sat down and I had to have an honest conversation with myself, right? And about the things that mattered the most to me, and the things that mattered to me the most were the things that I saw in him, right? Like he's smart, he's ambitious, but most importantly, like he is one of the most loving, most respectable human beings that I know. He loves his mother. He'll tell me I'm not a good dancer. One of my favorite things is karaoke and Zumba.
Oh, mine too.
I can't
not
sing.
Zumba, but
I can't sing for the life of me. I can't dance. But he would sing louder than me, and then he would dance with me, right? Versus telling me to stop. And everybody had told me to stop my whole life. People still tell me to stop today, right?
Same. But it never stops me.
Stops.
It only gives me more fuel.
Right. And so that mattered to me, that this guy was like, you know what? You have the right to be free and to sing and to have fun, right? And I'll be there by your side, and I'll sing louder than you, so that nobody noticed that you're off key. And so I was patient because of that, because he had the things that really mattered to me. Again, like I said, people hear that you experience a lot of death in life, but it's sad. But like it also could be beautiful, right? It can also teach you how to live your life, right? And teach you about lessons about the things that really matter the most, right? And having someone like him was more important. It was worth the wait, Right. It was worth it. And then having him like, literally, I'll show you the video, girl. This guy danced his way down the aisle. He was happy to be there. That meant a lot to me, And so, yeah, it's not easy to be patient. We had moments. I mean, trust me, we've had fights around getting married, but a lot of it came from other people asking when we were going to get married. And so now the question that I won't answer is like, when are you going to have kids?
Right.
I'm like,
none of your business.
Right.
So I used to say, when you pay the tuition.
Right. When you ready to babysit. Right. And even like when we were getting married, I would tell people, I would say this to people because I'm lightweight in the asshole in some ways. And I would say to people, when are you going to get married? I said, you know what? If we don't get married, it's going to be because of the pressure that you put on our relationship, right? And so when we broke up, it's like, what happened? You put pressure on our relationship.
You wasn't minding your business.
Right. You weren't minding your business. Had me acting like a crazy chick. Asking about the ring, And so I was able to be patient because, like, he had everything that I wanted, right? And it wasn't about his credentials. It was more about, like, the human. Like, my husband's an amazing human. Like, when you see him, like, he's one of the few people in the world who he's like a total geek, but is also personable. Like, I've watched him speak to people I've watched him speak to homeless people, literally, right? And all the way up to, like, CEOs of companies, right? And everybody walks away feeling like, you know what, I like that guy.
Right.
That mattered to me.
Since you guys were together that long before getting married, are things different now that there's a title and a ring on it? Or is it just like, I mean, we're the same people that we were before that?
I definitely think we're the same people, but I do think things are different. Like, he's, we're a unit. And so I lost a lot early on, and I had a hard time dealing with being like a unit, right? I actually am the one who had a hard time with being a part of a unit. We're a unit, and he's everything is us now. It's not you versus me. Right. Everything I do, I have to think about him, right? Like taxes, all of this stuff, I have to think about him. And so that's the difference. And also, like, we did the work before we got married. We went to counseling. We planned the wedding together. It wasn't a wedding. It wasn't me planning the wedding. Right. It was us planning a wedding. It was our vision, right? In those things. So I feel like we've become one, and it's terrifying to me because, like, it's like I've never been like dependent on anyone or anything like that, and I'm learning that that's not a negative thing to be like dependent on someone. Like, I'm literally his dependent,
right?
And so it feels weird, but it's to me, for us, and I know this sounds cliche, but it's amazing. And it's not amazing because we're married and everything's peaches and cream. We argue all the time, but it's because, like, I trust him, and I think I've spent so much time, such a big portion of my life, not being able to trust, right? Mm-hmm. Not taking care of myself. Like, it was like, if I don't get it done, no one's gonna get it done. Literally, like, eating, sleeping, having a roof over my head from 18 on, it was on me.
Right.
And so to have somebody who's like, listen, you have these dreams of entrepreneurship, pursue it. I think you're right. I think you're on the right course, right? Like, do it. And I'll be there for you if you need me to.
Right.
I'm still, like, every day, I be hustling. Let me tell you. I sell my makeup. I walk around with, I don't have it with me right now because of my pop-up earlier, but I walk around with my makeup product selling it because I'm like, you're not going to be taking care of me.
Right.
But to know that, like, I have someone who's like, listen, I'm doing everything I can in my power to make sure that we're good. Like, that is, like, for me, it, like, blows my mind.
What would you say are the 3 most important things in a marriage?
Ooh.
Or any relationship, really?
Well, I will say the number one important thing is communication, right? And not just communicating where it's like I'm telling you how I feel, but you actually listening and trying to hear and not take it personally. Communicating in a way that's like, that says, you know what, even though I don't agree with you, I can understand how you got to this point. Right? Can I present my point of view, right? Like, that to me, communication in that way, because people always like communication. What does that mean, right? It means you actively listening to me and understanding my pain and hearing that I may be delusional, but not sitting there telling me that I'm wrong.
Right.
But understanding, like, how did I get to this place? The other thing I think is, like, having fun with each other, like getting along with each other. My husband is so easygoing. It's insane. Like, Fridays, I'm like, let's do Zumba. He's like, all right, let's do Zumba. Right? let's sit in the living room. My friends come over. It's like, Ebony wants to do Zumba. Everybody's doing Zumba. Right? Right? So there's the ease about him that, like, allows me to just be myself. Allow me to show up in the world how I show up, right? And if you're not here for it, that's okay too, right? So accepting the fact that that person may not be there for it, because, like, nothing drives me crazier than people who are like, friends, like not just like dating, but like say we go on vacation together. You want to go see the park. I don't want to go.
And
that's okay.
Right. Like, why do we have to? We're already here together.
Right.
It's fine.
Right. Why is it bad for me to want to do something different from you? It's the same thing in the relationship. Like, my husband likes to come home and watch Luke Cage. That's okay. He wants to watch Luke Cage before he cuddles and snuggles with me, and that's okay, because that's how he processes things. That's how he de-stresses. And once I literally say, like, do you think I could have like an hour at 10 o'clock after Luke Cage?
Right. You don't need to binge the whole season.
Exactly. And so I think that's the other thing, just allowing people to show up, as themselves in the way that they want to show up, respecting the fact that, they may not be where you're at right now. I have the right to make a decision of whether I want to engage your energy or not, right? And it says nothing about you, right? It says everything about me and how I'm feeling in this moment, right?
Because people tend to take things just really personally. Because a lot of women might take that as like, here he goes watching Luke Cage again and not wanting to spend time with me, versus like, he's had a long day and that's how he chooses to unwind.
That's how he unwinds, right? And
it has nothing to do with you.
Nothing to do with you at all, right? And so me and one of my closest girlfriends, we talk a lot about this. And I say, thank God, and I don't know how people are going to take this, but I'm like, I thank God that I don't think that I'm that special, that like it all revolves around me, right? And I did at one point. I told you early on, everything was personal to me. So I'm happy that I was able to evolve and be like, this isn't about me. And one of the things that my husband and I learned is, like, we learned to understand each other's cues, right? Like triggers, but triggers, right? Like, what have you gone through in your life that triggers you, right? Like for me, it may be yelling at me, right? Because I grew up in a household where everybody spoke aggressively. And it wasn't abusive, it's just how they spoke, right? But I don't like to be spoken to that way, right? And so that if you're speaking to me aggressively, we about to argue. We're gonna argue, right? And so what my husband does is he'll say, I can't do it right now, right? And then I'll say, okay. And then we come back tomorrow and we talk about it. But because he knows that I can't get over it until we talk about it, right? And so I'll be patient and wait for you to be able to talk about it in the tone that I can receive.
Right.
But
I can't receive this tone.
I can't receive
the way your tone's set up, my ears aren't receiving it well. So we could just adjust the volume and tone.
Because I'm from the Bronx. I'm from the Bronx. We don't respond well.
Don't let me go back there. Do not let me do it to you.
Respond well to that.
So tell me a little bit more about your business and what you're doing there.
It's called You Beauty. You, like you and me, like you sitting in front of me. But because it's spelled YHUE, and a part of the reason why I did that was because I was getting frustrated on social media with everyone being upset. Everybody's like super woke right now, and it's an amazing time to be Black. It's an amazing time to be a Black female, right? But I just saw a lot of rage and anger, and I'm a problem solver, right? And so I saw people getting really upset at like these beauty companies because they left us out, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, so what? Like there's enough of us that's building, creating brands that we can support them. And so I started thinking about starting a cosmetic retail store, like be the Sephora of
Black Sephora,
the Black Sephora, right? But communities of color, I say, because when you say people of color or communities of color, they think Black, but it's like not just our problem; it's multicultural, right? The issue is across like cultures, and so I started to go out and started to start working with small brands, and I just started to realize that there was a bigger issue. The issue isn't just having access to retail; it's access to manufacturing, it's access in general. And so I started to even if you go to BeautyCon, right, to rent a table is $5,000, right, minimum. If you're a small beauty brand, you can't compete. Yeah. So what I started to see is that a lot of these small beauty brands was having a hard time connecting to our community. To multicultural communities. Let me not say our community,
right.
but multicultural communities. And so I said, you know what? I wanna find a solution for that. And so right now, I did my first pop-up today. I started my
Congrats!
first. Thank you, at the Canal Street Marketplace. And I'm hoping to come to Queens and go to Brooklyn and do a bunch of different pop-up shops.
So it's makeup brands from small businesses that are catering to people of color.
Right.
Got it.
Skincare and makeup.
Got it.
But like ultimately next year I want to do an expo, the U Beauty Expo.
Yep.
I want to invite some of the larger brands to the expo as well, because I do feel like we need to, it's not just about makeup, it's about our skin, right? And how we view that. So the focus really is to just like empower, educate, and equip the small brands with the tools that they need to connect with communities of color. My end goal is to create like a co-working space for beauty brands.
Oh, that would be dope.
It's gonna be very dope.
Like a WeWork, but just with beauty.
But for beauty, yeah,
that's dope.
And so I'm working on that as well. That's the end goal. So
nice. So can people reach out to you on Instagram or Facebook or anything?
Yes, it's at YouBeauty, at YHUEBEAUTY on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Even though I don't tweet a lot, social media is weird to me. I'm getting comfortable with that now, so I need people to be patient with me. Because it's every time I post something, I think I just recently posted this. Every time I post on social media, people need to know that I'm being brave, because it's very difficult for me to put myself out there. Even like talking now, like on this podcast, it's very difficult for me to put myself out there. So
yeah.
Well,
you're doing a good job.
Thank you, girl. Let's hope Vern says that.
Well, Vern, if you ever want to come on, if you have something else you want to say,
you want to come back, you want to come on here, honey, my honey dip.
Thanks for coming on tonight and sharing.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for being so vulnerable and like talking about your insecurities, because we all have them.
We do. Yeah, I'm fortunate, and I definitely try to embrace my insecurities and use them as a way for me to grow and be a better human. So
that's what you got to use them for.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And to you guys listening out there, please reach out to me at Tanisha Wood, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and let me know what you think of the show today. And until next time, wish me love. Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.